case somebody hasn't bought a home. So what happens is typically they advise that before you start making offers or seriously looking at a house is that you do a pre-approval. So that's where you go to a lender and you say, basically, I'd like to buy a house, here's my income, here's all this information, how much can I afford? And they give you an amount that they pre-approve you for. So they say, based on the information you've given us, we believe you could afford up to this amount.
You can't listen to your real estate agent or the mortgage person when it comes to price, because you realize everyone has an incentive, and those are people who work off of commission, who have an incentive for you to buy the nicest home that they'll realistically approve you for, which is way more than you can afford. So,
and can I just interject? When Joel says don't listen to your real estate agent, he's not saying when you find a house you like and they say put an offer in for this amount. There you should listen to your agent, because you should have an agent who's trying to get you the best price on the house. He means in what you can afford prior to a specific house.
Exactly. And so before you even go into a mortgage person or if you're talking to a real estate agent, you need to run the numbers yourself to figure out exactly how much. When we
and they
went
have
in,
calculators online.
oh yeah, they have lots of great calculators. But when we went in, I called the mortgage person. I didn't tell him how much can you approve me for. I said I need you to approve me for X amount. And he goes, I can approve you for more. I go, I don't want you to approve me for more. I want you to approve me for X, because I will not spend more than X. And I feel like it's so easy to get in, because like Christina said, you'll fall in love with the house, you have an approval for X, and then all of a sudden emotions override common sense, and then all of a sudden you're in a situation where you're in a home you cannot afford. So especially in a market like LA, you need to figure out what that number is that makes sense for you, and don't go above that number, because it is so easy to do so, and there's so many people telling you things that like, oh, in LA the price will just keep going up, and you don't know that's true. I hope it's true, because I own a home here.
Right.
Well, we own a home here, so I hope for us that's true, but you can't count on that, so you need to be realistic and also make sure you're protecting yourself.
Yeah. I think if you don't work in finance and you don't have experience buying homes, it can be overwhelming to try and figure out what is a realistic budget. So I think you need to think about, when you're running the calculations online, is the price of the mortgage isn't going to be your only cost. So when you rent a home or an apartment or whatever, you have like your rent amount, and then you have your utilities and your insurance, and that's pretty much it in terms of like your housing cost.
Yeah.
But when you buy a house or a home or whatever, there's other costs that you have to think about. One of those things are HOAs. So HOAs are homeowners associations, and they have them for condos, townhomes, and houses. Typically, newer homes will have them. Older homes typically won't, depending on your market. So that's a cost that will either be monthly, it can be quarterly or annually, and they can be, we've seen them up to $800, $900, $1,000 a month. So you have to consider that.
Yeah, I've seen one of the places I loved in Marina Del Rey was $3,000 a month.
Right, so I mean, that's a crazy amount. But even if it's, say, $100 a month, that's going to be $100 a month, so $1,200 over a 12-month period that you have to budget for, because that's a huge amount.
I mean, then we're not even gone to the four main parts of the mortgage.
Yeah, why don't you talk about that?
You have principal and interest, which is principal goes toward the debt, the price of your home, interest goes to the bank. Those are the two major parts that most people look at, and they say, okay, I can afford X amount, and then the bank will tell you X, but you're also not factoring in the other two factors where you have.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think if people are like me, it helps if like you break it down. So for example, say your monthly mortgage, which is your principal and your interest, is $1,000.
Yep.
Then say you have $100 a month in HOA, and again, we're just using clean numbers to make it easier.
And then you also going to have two other massive expenses, which are going to be homeowners insurance and then property taxes. And you
I
need
just made the creepiest face.
And
I'm so sorry.
this is before you get into maintenance, utilities, and everything else you'll need to be paying on a basis. But home insurance, oftentimes, and property taxes will be bundled into your mortgage payment. So this will all make your mortgage payment several $100s more than what you anticipated. Plus, I would recommend most of my clients, I work in financial planning, I don't know if I mentioned that, to assume an extra 10% a year of what you're spending on your mortgage for improvements, because the second you buy a house, things start breaking.
Yeah.
Like in Arizona, the first 2 weeks we had a home, our water heater flooded our garage. And so you have to account for that. So all of a
So
sudden
quickly, your $1,000 payment a month,
becomes $1,700 a month.
yeah, very quickly, and that's just regular costs. You still have to think about when you buy a new place, you're probably putting in a certain amount of money, either getting new furniture, additional furniture, even just like blinds and curtains and bedding and things like that. Even if you have all of that, you're going to end up spending a certain amount of money on additional things.
Exactly. And rule of thumb says your all-in payment, so not just principal and interest, your all-in housing cost shouldn't be more than 33%, 1/3 of your take-home pay. Now, if you're going to live in a place of LA, New York, San Francisco, just take that number and you throw it out the window, because unless
It's so expensive to live here.
and modern personal finance theory has shifted that number up closer to 50%, because the theory is, ideally, if you're living in one of these high cost areas, you're making hopefully more money to be able to swing that, but it should be no more than 50% of your take-home pay, your total all-in housing costs, because otherwise you're going to be house poor in that you have a house but you can't afford the lifestyle or the things you want to do with that, and seen as a house is a 30-year commitment, that's one of the worst places you want to be in.
Yeah. So when you're running the numbers online and you're looking at how much you can afford in a home, take into consideration that there are other costs that you have when you buy a home, just in the 4 components of owning the home: the mortgage, the HOA if you have one in your community, the costs to run your home, your utilities, then your regular expenses, so what you spend in a month. If you have a car payments, student debt, like all of that is coming out of your pocket, and if that number is greater than what you're getting in a month from your paycheck, then you have a problem.
Yeah, and also, last thing on finances is make sure you save for a down payment, because if you don't have a traditional
ideally.
20% down payment, you're going to have to find out something called PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, which adds additional large
Cost.
chunk of money. And this doesn't go toward principal, this doesn't go toward interest. This is basically saying, the bank saying, we don't trust you because we don't think you have money, so you're going to pay us more money because we're going to take out an insurance policy in case you default on this loan.
Yeah.
And that's just money you're flushing down the drain. So if you can avoid that,
Yeah, I would say as soon as you can, say you're a college student or even a high school student and you know one day you want to buy a home, put a little bit aside every month, even if it's $25 or $50. Like, it doesn't have to be a crazy amount. Just put it in an account that you're not going to touch and continue to contribute to it, and it will help you so much in the long run. And I know if you don't have teachers or parents in your life who can or do share with you like how to be a responsible adult and how to budget, it can be really overwhelming to try and figure that out on your own. I think both of us were really lucky in that we had parents who made that very transparent on that you can't spend beyond what you make and how to manage your finances and all of that. And then we both have degrees in business and worked in finance. Well, I worked in finance for 5 years and Joel still in finance. So we definitely have a lot of expertise in that area. But even if you don't, just educate yourself and think about it very logically. You can't spend more than you have because at some point that will catch up with you.
Exactly. Think about it like this: pay yourself first. If you make $2,000 a month and your fixed expenses are $1,000, before you start having fun and going out to bars and stuff, take a certain amount from your surplus money and move it into savings, because you can't spend what's not, well, in theory you can, but you shouldn't spend what's not in your account. And if you don't see it, you're not likely. Jeeves is very thirsty right now. You're not likely to spend money you can't see. So by moving it into savings or a separate account, you're removing the temptation.
Subconsciously, people adjust how much they're spending based on how much money is in their account. As we made more money just from our jobs, we were spending more. And if you make that decision to put a certain amount aside every month before it even is touched, then you are going to adjust your spending accordingly. But if you don't make that, you're going to find a way to spend that extra $100.
It's called lifestyle inflation, and
he knows the technical terms.
It is the most common thing. So
yeah, so it's just one of those things. Like the same way your paycheck, the government gets their chunk before you get yours. So treat yourself at least as well as you treat the government.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that brings us to the end of our 2-part series. Maybe 3, we'll see.
Of housing, finance, and the moral of the story is be responsible, have a plan, and don't get too emotionally attached, because it's a ruthless world out there, especially in LA.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we hope you like this little series. I didn't know that it was going to become a series, but if you like hearing videos on finance, and if you have any questions on finance, let us know in the comments below, and maybe we'll make some more videos like this. And thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you are new here, and go ahead and like this video. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye. I hate to move because Jeeves just got.
I thought you were gonna say I hate you. Like